Linux just hit an all-time high on Steam, regional pricing is finally getting a proper fix, and the Steam store homepage is getting a facelift. Let's talk about all three news. First up, Valve is refreshing the Steam store homepage and it's currently in beta, so if you want to try it right now, you can just opt into the Steam client beta through your desktop settings and you're in. Now look, the Steam store hasn't exactly aged like fine wine. It's been patched and added over to the years in a way that it made it feel a bit stitched together, and this update is trying to fix that, and from what they've described it sounds like they actually put some thought into it. Now this affects only the homepage. There has been numerous changes over the last years about different categories and different aspects of the Steam client and the Steam store, but this one is specifically about the homepage. And a few things stand out. There is now high resolution game art, a wider layout that responds better on bigger monitors, and the featured and recommended settings now tells you why a game is being recommended to you, which honestly should have been there a long time ago. Now, how many times have you hovered over something on the front page and had no idea why Steam thought you might want it? Yeah, I have been there. Microservers are back too, playing when you hover over cover art, and that can go either way depending on who you are. If you're sensitive to motion or you just don't want the page constantly animating, they've now added the option to turn that off in the settings. Two new sections are being added as well, one for discounted games on your wishlist and one for discounted DLC for games you already own. The wishlist one in particular should be genuinely useful. You've already told Steam you want those games, so surfacing the sales automatically just feels good. Now here's my one gripe, and this applies specifically to the Steam Deck users. The store on the Steam Deck is still just a wrap web page. It's not a native solution, and this update doesn't change that. Yes, it is a bit more responsive now, and you can try it right now without updating anything on the deck, but it's only the homepage that gets these changes. The rest of the store is the same as it always has been on the deck. And for a device that Valve clearly cares about and is aimed at getting more store customers, it still feels like the store experience on the Steam Deck is just an afterthought. A more responsive homepage is a step in the right direction, but at some point we need to have a real conversation about whether a wrapped web page is good enough for what is essentially a dedicated gaming handheld, and it's also not great to navigate with a controller, and all of these issues will translate to the Steam machine. So what do you think? Is the store experience on deck something that bothers you, or have you just made peace with it and you think it's usable enough? Alright, this one is a mix of good news and a conversation that's been a long time coming. Valve has updated their pricing tools in Steamworks with 3 new regional pricing conversion methods, and while this is aimed at developers, it directly affects what you pay for games depending on where you live. Here's the situation. Steam supports pricing across 35 different currencies and 4 regional groups. Developers set their own prices, and historically a lot of them either ignored regional purchasing power entirely or use outdated conversion data. The result, gamers in certain countries have been quietly paying way more than they should for years. The 3 new methods are exchange rate conversion, purchasing power conversion, and a multi-variable option that combines purchasing power, local entertainment costs, and exchange rates together. Now developers can plug in a base USD price and see in real time how it converts across every currency under each method. They can also manually override individual currencies if they think they know better. Now here's where it gets real. Some of you may have already seen this play out firsthand. For example, if you bought Hades 2 and got some money back, that wasn't random. Polish gamers noticed that games using Steam's suggested price in Poland cost roughly 10% more compared to the rest of the world. So they organized, they emailed developers directly, they flooded Steam discussions and got on Twitter, and a thread about Hades 2 pricing alone hit over 500 comments. And Supergiant listened and dropped the price from 139 Polish zloty to 117, giving back 22 zloty to everyone who already bought the game. The same thing happened in Ukraine shortly after. And this isn't a one-off. Games like Hades 2, Velvidek, Hellish Court, Doorkickers 2 and more, they all saw price drops as a result of that campaign. The developers of No Rest for the Wicked, which was apparently the most expensive in the world in Poland, promised to raise pricing issue with their publisher so they can get a fix on that as well. So how did we get to this point? Back in October 2022, Steam adjusted its regional pricing to reflect a period where the Polish currency had weakened, and prices jumped by up to 28% in some cases. And the issue is that Valve didn't update those numbers for nearly 2 years, even after the currency stabilized. So Polish players were stuck paying 2022 crisis-era prices in 2024, with incomes that still trail behind Eurozone countries. Forza Motorsport, for example, was 349 Polish zloty in Poland versus around 300 in Germany. That's a 14% gap with no justification whatsoever. So, do these new tools fix any of that? Not entirely. They do give developers better data, and that matters, but Valve is also being very clear that prices won't change unless developers manually choose to update them. So if a developer decides to ignore the tools, nothing changes. And that's why the Polish example becomes important for everyone watching this, not just Polish players. If you're in a region where game prices feel off, you can check SteamDB. You can see regional price comparisons on any game's page. If your country is paying significantly more than comparable markets, that's worth flagging to the developer directly. It's not complaining, it's just information they may not even be aware of. Now, Valve also said that following or ignoring the conversion tools has zero effect on store visibility, and that's a pretty big deal because it removes any incentive for the developers to use bad pricing to game the algorithm. They're doing it by choice or they're not doing it at all. So is all of this enough? Probably not on its own, but between better tools and players actually pushing back, the situation is at least moving in the right direction. So let me know, are game prices in your region fair? Genuinely curious, let me know in the comments below. Just a quick one before we get into the last topic. If you're finding this useful, hit the like button, it genuinely helps more people find the channel. And if you like watching videos about Steam, Steam Deck and handheld gaming, consider subscribing to the channel. On to the last topic of today's video, and this one is wild. The March 2026 Steam survey results just dropped, and Linux is sitting at 5.33% of Steam usage. That is an all-time high. To put that into perspective, Linux ended 2025 at around 3.5%. It dipped to about 2% in February and then just jumped over 3 percentage points in a single month. For comparison, macOS is at 2.35% and Linux is now more than double that on Steam. Now, there is a wrinkle here worth mentioning. Part of this jump is almost certainly related to Valve correcting Steam China data. There's a 31% drop in simplified Chinese language use month over month, which is a big swing, and that suggests the numbers were overcounting something before. So not all of the Linux gain is real organic growth, but that being said, even accounting for that, this is still a significant number. Around a quarter of Linux Steam users are on SteamOS specifically, and AMD hardware makes up nearly 70% of Linux gaming setups, which of course makes sense given the Steam Deck and AMD's open source driver approach. Here's what I keep thinking about though. Valve has been quietly building towards this for years between the Steam Deck, Proton and SteamOS, and they never made a big deal out of it publicly. They just kept improving on it, and the numbers are starting to reflect that hard work. So is Linux going to overtake Windows on Steam? No, not at all. Windows is at 92%, but that's not really the point. The point is that Linux gaming is no longer a niche, it's starting to feel normal, and if you're watching this on a Steam Deck, SteamOS, CashOS, Buzzite or any other Linux distro, you are part of that number. So what's your setup? Let me know in the comments. I'm genuinely curious how many of you are on Linux or on SteamOS full time now. And that about covers it for today. 3 pieces of news all pointing at Valve doing what Valve does best, quietly improving things while the rest of the industry is busy laying off thousands of workers. Yes, I'm looking at you, Tim Sweeney. And if you guys enjoyed this video, leave a like. And if you disliked it, leave a comment and let me know what I can improve. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.